What up, everybody? Welcome to the XCast. Right about now, we want to welcome you to the greatest podcast on earth, hosted by yours truly, the XSP.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the XCast. Check it out. This is the XCast with the XSP. That is me. And it's been a long time. So, welcome back to the show. Now, before we get to the show, let's pay some bills. My name is the Extreme Street Preacher, XSP. You can find me on Spotify. You can find me on iTunes. You can find me on bandcamp.com. You can find me anywhere you're streaming your music. So, please go out and listen to the Extreme Street Preacher. That's the XSP hyphen Extreme Street Preacher. I just put out a new album. It's called Hell's Most Wanted. Has songs like Chop 'Em Down. Has songs like Acts 238. Has great music for everyone to enjoy. Very heavy, very violent towards demons, and very Christian. There's Christian lyrics all throughout there. I just want you to check it out. Now, if you like other podcasts, there's something called A Burning Hope on Spotify. You can go look that up. And there's also Project Restore done by my brother Jason Garcia, where he talks to all kinds of people from all walks of life and how their lives were changed. So, without further ado, let's look into this next guest. Her name is Janelle. She has a stance on abortion that right now may seem very controversial. So, without further ado, let's get to the show. Right now on the XCast, I have Janelle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that you came on the show. This is actually our first episode back since we've been on kind of a little hiatus. How are you doing today, first of all?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain.
All right.
How about you?
Well, I'm doing great. I just got off of work. Had a little bit of things to do, but we are here and present, and we're going to get this thing started. So one of the things I ask everybody, because I talk to people from all different styles of life, whether they be punk rockers, rappers, ministers, all kinds of different people. Ask, have you ever seen anything that you couldn't explain, whether it be supernatural, paranormal? Everyone says something different. What do you have to say for this question, just to break the ice, so to speak?
Well, I have experienced, I guess you could call them visions, where I can kind of see a supernatural spirit, like a figure. Sometimes I can see the face and the person that it's trying to attack, and I usually will pray over that person. I don't tell them, I don't share that with them. A lot of them get freaked out by it. But I just pray, and usually 9 times out of 10 they'll pull me aside later and tell me, I was struggling with this, but I'm doing much better, and it's always pretty much spot on with what I saw.
Well, and how often how often did that happen to you?
The biggest events, I'd say at least 4 times now.
Wow. And what causes this? Like, do you know where it comes from? Do you know where it started? How did that kind of come to be? That ability come to be?
I guess it was a gift that I always had. I noticed it when I was about maybe like 10, 10 or 11, but I didn't know what it was, and I just freaked myself out, and I was too scared to tell anyone about it. So I just kept it to myself until I hit my adult years, when I finally shared with someone about it, and they said that was the spiritual gift of discernment. If you're usually when you try to learn discernment, it's more of like a gut feeling that people talk about, but when it's something that comes natural to you and something that you can grow in pretty quickly, it'll eventually manifest itself.
All right, man, that's an interesting ability. Are there any other abilities that maybe manifest themselves in you, or some how can you explain maybe to someone who isn't necessarily a believer? How does that come upon you?
The best way I explain it is like a gut feeling, like a sixth sense. You can't explain where it came from, how you know this, but it's there and you can't really deny it.
All right. So it's pretty obvious you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows you from your TikToks, you have a very specific agenda that you're looking at. But let's look first off. How did you become a Christian? Were you always a Christian? Did you grow up in a Christian home? What led you to become a Christian? Because nowadays it seems like Christians are looked down upon, or
Yeah.
they're uh, put in a certain pigeonhole that maybe somebody doesn't want to be that. But how did you become a Christian?
So I grew up in the church. My mom and my dad were Catholic, but they switched to Christianity. And yeah, I always grew up in it. I didn't fully understand it. I, for a while, even walked away from it all and just became atheist. And then when I reconnected with my husband, he had turned his life around, and I didn't understand like how he turned it around so drastically, because I've known him since I was 12 years old, and I reconnected when we were about like 17, 18, and the difference was night and day, and I couldn't understand it. And he told me about God, and I shrugged it off. I was like, I already know about God. I don't need you to tell me about God. Um, but I wanted what he had, and I didn't understand. I was like, I've always been, grown up in the church and all these things. So I was like, how does he have that and I don't have that? And I ended up walking away from it. So that's when I wanted to get into the logical side of things, the scientific, factual things, and I really studied the word from a point of view of where I wanted to disprove it, and I wanted to say you don't need that to have what he had. And I ended up flipping completely, clearly.
So, what was it exactly that I want to go back to? You said you were an atheist at one point. What was it exactly that? Because I myself consider myself that as well, and then through searching, trying to like you disprove everything that I was taught in the church, but ended up
Mhm.
being where you can't deny anymore. But what was it that brought you to the point where you say, "Hey, God's not real. None of this is real." What were there specific events that happened, or tell your story?
So I have quite a few events. From the age of 7, I remember clear as day, a lot of traumatic experiences. And growing up, and I hated the answer that everybody gave me. Oh, this is, things happen for a reason. This is God's plan. And I said, if this is the God that I'm supposed to serve, I want absolutely nothing to do with him. I cannot believe that a God of love would allow all these things to happen to me. So, and I struggled with same-sex attraction, and I was like, I don't get why that matters. I don't get why who I love matters so much to him that he would send me to hell. And so I was on that aspect of he's not a God of love, he's a God of anger and hate and control. And I said, and if that's God, then he's not real to me.
Wow, wow.
Hmm.
That's definitely one for today. I know that there are many people, especially during this month, you see it all the time. You see the love
Yeah.
is love. You see the Pride Month and whatnot. How do you, from your vantage point, how do you talk to somebody maybe who's kind of struggling with these inclinations?
I actually talked to quite a few. I never post videos about it. They'll comment, but I always message them. I don't want to put them on blast. But usually, what I'll do is I ask them, how they came to this understanding of that's who they love or anything along those lines, and then I kind of lead it into a logical, factual, scientific discussion. I never go back to God. I go based off of the facts and science, because not everyone is Christian. And I want them to understand, like, you don't just because I'm Christian, I don't believe what I believe just because the Bible says that. I believe what I believe because there is something like science or facts that back it up. And the Bible is basically, in my point of view, it's like foreshadowing the entire world and everything that the science tends to say, oh, we discovered. I'm like, God discovered it, you're barely discovering it. So
Right.
I basically will send them scientific studies or things along those lines, like, hey, okay, I get what you're saying, I get how that makes sense, I understand that because I struggled with that and that's what I thought. But when I look at it from this scientific point of view, it invalidates everything you just said to me. So how do you validate one side of your argument without invalidating the other. And a lot of times I haven't met a single person that can. I haven't met anyone that can say, oh, well, there's more than this many genders. And I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying. Like, it's based off the feeling or how you feel. And so I've had some people tell me, oh, I've been born with, a female brain in a man's body. And I'm like, okay, well, explain that to me. And they will. And I hear them out. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see how that totally makes sense. But then I pull up the studies that show there's no such thing as a gendered brain. And I'm like, if there's no such thing as a gendered brain, and if you believe gender is a social construct based on how we're raised, then how are you going to tell me that you're born with a gendered brain? It just doesn't add up. It invalidates everything you just told me.
Well, and do you get kickback from that? Because I can
Oh,
understand how facts can make somebody feel very upset if they believe a certain thing and the facts tell them otherwise. You ever get some kickback from that?
yes. So I'm happy to say, which is funny, the younger generation that I've interacted with, I'm talking like maybe like 15, 16, 13, that have messaged me and I present this stuff to them, they're actually a lot more open-minded than the adults that believe these things. So when I tell them and I show them the proof, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, well, that's okay. You didn't, I didn't know that either. I was like, but you go based off of, you know, the facts, so I'm just presenting that to you. You didn't know that. And they readjust everything and they're like, well, I need to do my own research. I'm like, yeah, come back to me when you're done. And sometimes they won't come back because they're like, she's right. But it's actually
Exactly.
the adults that are my own age that I get the most kickback from.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I had known that. Obviously, I know you from your videos from TikTok. So how did that whole situation get started? I'm kind of a novice from that. I just started doing little videos here and there at the end of last year. But
Mhm.
it looks like you have a very wide audience. How did you even get into the whole process of getting that? What was your inspiration to be on there?
Honestly, I was really bored during COVID. 100% transparency. I had nothing better to do, and I didn't anticipate going political or religious in any way. My whole platform before was just my story with my husband of how we became together and our life and our battle with infertility, my health battle. That was my page before I started getting questions about God. And I was like, I would tell my husband, I don't want to go there. I've seen the hate that these people get and I don't want it. And he said, okay, well, you don't have to. So, but then I was praying and God told me, it was clear as day. I could hear him. He was just like, you want to help people. You want to spread the word. I have given you complete access through the internet. You have a small following right now, and you are doing nothing with it to glorify me. And I just was kind of taken back, like, dang, ouch. Like, okay, I get it. And so I felt pretty convicted, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it and see how that goes. And I did, and I started to gain quite a bit of people, but I got a lot of hate to the point where I had to get rid of all my private social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. I had to take a break from TikTok for a while because I was getting so many death threats. But one day I just was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what anyone thinks, and I'm going to continue saying what I have to say. So I came back and my following just kind of blew up.
Wow. So you got death threats.
Oh,
Now,
so many death threats.
what did they give a reason why they're trying to they want you to die? I mean, I don't understand. Maybe take us into maybe the first one and the most recent one.
The first one was because I had shared that I believe that being gay is a choice given my own struggles. So I had shared my experience, and because they were asking about a family member of mine who is bisexual, and they said, would you allow them in your house? I said, absolutely, I would allow them in my house. I'd allow a prostitute in my house. That doesn't make a difference to me. And they were like, well, why? And so I explained my own experience and my testimony, and they did not like that because they were commenting, saying things like, you're making it seem like it's a choice, and how could you say that? And now you're just saying that we choose to live a harder life. And I just kind of ignored it. I was like, I'm just gonna, filter out some of the comments. And so once they realized I wasn't gonna respond, I had some people, it wasn't just one, it was like my inbox was pretty flooded on Instagram. I don't even know how they found my Instagram, but they found it and they were sending me like, I hope that you get raped and killed and murdered. And if I ever see you, I'll do it myself and things like that. So it wasn't like one at a time. It was just like it all came at once.
How did that make you feel?
I was pretty terrified.
Knowing that God revealed to you that He wants you to do this with this platform. What did you have doubts in your mind? Did you have things like that going through your mind?
I didn't have doubts per se. I was just I just kind of went back to that whole concept of like, God, why do you want me to do this if this is what I got to deal with? I don't understand. Like, this is horrible. And He took me back to when He was like, you know that this is part of the deal. Like, this is what the Bible says throughout time and time again, that you're going to be persecuted. This is not anything new. And if you can't handle it through a screen, how are you going to handle it in real life? And I just was like, okay. So I just like, I'm going to take a break for my own mental health. And I got really into the word during that break. I fasted and I was like, all right, I'm ready. And I got back into it. And I started a prayer group that would cover me, my family, because they did, if they found out my family, I told my mom, she likes to watch my TikToks. I said, don't post that I am your daughter in the comments. I said, because they will go after you. And she was like, well, I'm going to do it. So I always had to take them down because they would. They're like, oh, that's your daughter, or oh, that's your sister. And so it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, we need a prayer group. We need to keep us under prayer. My videos under prayer because I get attacked left and right. And so since then, I've built up a pretty strong, like, self-esteem, mental health, as far as all of those threats. They don't faze me, not even in the slightest bit anymore.
And is that still going on? Has there been a recent, because I can understand how your content will get so many people upset. Even the delivery that you have is a very nice, straightforward delivery, not anything rude or anything, but just the content itself. And has there been any kind of pushback as well?
Yeah, the most recent one I got, I had to block this person. They were trolling my account and they were commenting that they basically pray that I get raped and that I would lose the baby and things like that, because I've always said if I got pregnant from that situation, I wouldn't abort my child. So they were praying that that would happen to me and I would have to suffer and go through that, and that my, rapist would get the rights and things like that. So that was the most recent one, was the threats of like, oh, you believe in prayer? Well, I'm going to pray curses on you. And I get a lot of witches actually too, witches that'll tell me like, I'm going to curse you or things like that, because they know I believe in that stuff and I know that it's real.
Right. And as well as I, let's look at, some of your content. You do, you have the hypocrisy videos, which are funny to me. And you also have the abortion videos. Which one came first, the hypocrisy series or the abortion series? Or what was the idea, I guess, behind both?
Okay, so the hypocrisy one, that was not my idea at all. I saw it on another video through TikTok. I don't even know the person's name because I don't follow them. I just saw that they were making a funny joke of the hypocrisy of the left. And I've never on TikTok even claimed which party I'm a part of or, really went political before hypocrisy. But once I saw how funny that was, I just recreated the video using her sound. It wasn't even my sound on the first one. It was her sound. And people just went crazy over it and they wanted a part 2. And I was like, well, it's not my sound. I've already said that it's her sound and she doesn't have a part 2. And they're all, well, you just do it. And so I was like, okay, so I did. And from then on, it just took off. They're like part 3, part 4, part 12. And I was like, okay. And I've never really run out of material because one side is pretty hypocritical than the other.
Right.
But
And
the pro-life, that one I just made one video about how I believe, abortion is murder. Now they were commenting abortion's not murder, legally, and the definition of murder is that it's unlawful, it's lawful, so it's not murder. And we were going back and forth in the comments, and I was like, yeah, slavery was also legal, but that doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean that they weren't murdered, because you come to today's time and it's considered murder. So I was like, just because society says it's okay doesn't mean that it actually is. And we would go back and forth, and eventually I was like, this is crazy, some of the comments I get. So I recreated the videos without putting the comments in the videos, and people were like, these can't be real conversations. I don't believe you. They sound you're making us sound ridiculous. Pro-choice people, we would never say that. And I'm like, oh, but you do. And I have all the screenshots to prove it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start putting in the comments so they know that this is 100% real. And so I did. And that's when everyone was like, they're just like, well, you know what? I'm pro-choice anyway. Deletus the fetus. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't actually prove anything. Again, you're just proving the other person where you have no scientific, logical, factual stance, and that you just don't want responsibility. And they get pretty pissed off.
yeah, I can imagine when you defeat somebody with actual facts, and really it's just feelings. I don't know if you followed Ben Shapiro or not, but he's one of the guys that's basically like, your feelings don't matter when it comes to actual facts. And it seems like you're kind of along the same wavelength there. So when you did those videos, when you still do them, do you still get people who just want to challenge you and want to fight you, things like that?
So I do have a lot of people you'll see in the comments try to argue like, well, I can make the same argument for a parasite or blah, blah. And I enjoy it really, because I go back and forth with them in the comments. And then at the end of it, when they stop responding, because I'm like, you know what? You want to debate me for real? Let's talk for real. I was like, let's do a video, or let's chat through the messages or whatever. I was like, let's chat for real. 9 times out of 10, they run away. And I'm just like, well, thank you for the great material for my next video, I guess.
I know a lot of the people that I've talked to go with the rape situation. Is that really a high number? And the things that you've studied, is there a high number of rapes that happen? Or that's like their main thing is, oh, what if you get raped? And I don't know. I have my ideas or whatever, but not today's society say, well, you're a man, you don't have a say in the whole matter. So from your end on your research, is rape a really high number for the people who get abortions?
No, it is not. It's actually about less than 5%. Mainly it's less than 1%. But if you dig deeper into how many may go unreported that they were raped, it's still less than about 5%. And the thing about it is they get so upset when pro-life says we want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And they get really upset, and they're like, what about the people who get raped? And I stop them right there and I say, do you know what Roe v. Wade is? And they're all, yeah, it's so we have a choice. I'm like, no, sweetie. I was like, Roe v. Wade, before it was even, a thing, I was like, abortion was allowed for rape, incest, and if medically necessary. So if Roe v. Wade is overturned, your argument doesn't even stand. I was like, it's not logical to even argue with that when it comes to Roe v. Wade. Now, if we're going to talk about pushing it further past Roe v. Wade and actually ban abortion for the cases of rape, then you have something to kind of talk about. But if that's all you have, take a seat. And 9 times out of 10, they don't say anything. But if they do come back, they're like, okay, well, let's push past that. I'm like, all right, let's push past that. I was like, you talk about being raped. Well, you also talk about the foster care system. You guys always like to throw that in our face, which is so funny because if you look at the facts, it says Christians and pro-life people who aren't Christian are the highest percentage of people who take care of foster kids and adopt. You guys clearly do not. So if you want to put your money where your mouth is, I was like, you would be helping those people who are getting raped. You would be giving them options instead of saying, putting them in the foster care system, I'm going to adopt that child. But you guys don't adopt that child. And the thing is foster care is mainly for the kids who get taken away from their own families because they cannot take care of them. It isn't for people who get raped and then give the child up. Most times, the person who gets raped and they give the child up, the baby's immediately adopted. There's about, I think it's 20 families per baby that are waiting to adopt a baby. So when they say it's going to end up in the foster care system, no, it's not. I was like, if they were older and, you know, the victim tried to take care of the baby, then that child would end up in the foster care system. But if they don't want that child and they give that child up for adoption, they're not even going to be in the system. So the thing about rape is that's what it comes down to. What if they're raped? Okay, give them up for adoption. They're going to end up in the foster care system. No, they're not. Because there's so many families worldwide waiting for a baby that there's not enough of them to go around. I'm actually one of those people waiting for a baby. So if you want to give that baby to me, that's fine. But they never do.
Right. So you seem to do a lot of your own research. It's obvious that you know what you're talking about. So I know I've seen one of your videos that talks about, one of your videos talks about the process of an abortion. Some people say it's safe for both the baby and the mother, but I don't know how safe that is to be cut into pieces. But if you want to go over some of the process, if you can, if you wish, that way just for some people to realize that it's not safe, nor is it humane. But if you want to talk about that for a little bit, kind of clarify, because some people say it's safe and it's has no problem, there's no issues. But from your research, can you let us know what the whole process is?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different types of abortions that everybody talks about that they bring up, but the main one that they don't seem to know about, and this goes worldwide. I've talked to a lot of people in different countries that don't even know this is a thing in America. But the number one that I talk about is the one where they pull the baby from the mother limb by limb, or the one where they take a suction and they suck the fetus out of her womb. And while it's being sucked in, it is crushing the child. So, because the thing that sucks is about probably like that big, and you're thinking of a fetus, it's crushing it as it's sucking it in. And when they do it the other way, which is limb by limb, they have to break every single bone to be able to yank it out. So they're coming out piece by piece, broken bone by broken bone, and they don't get no anesthesia or any of that stuff that people are like, well, they don't feel it. You actually cannot prove that they do not feel it. There is no science, and everyone agrees scientifically that they cannot prove that they don't feel it. They can prove when they start to feel it, but they can't prove that they don't feel it before that point because they haven't advanced technology enough to actually say so. So all those babies that are being torn apart piece by piece could be feeling, I believe they feel it because they have videos where the child is trying to move away. They see in the womb the child is trying to get away from the objects that are trying to kill them. And I just get baffled when people sit there and tell me, I'm like, can I break your bone? Like, can I just break it and just yank it off of your body and tell me that that wouldn't hurt? Like, and when they say the baby doesn't have a developed brain, we technically do not even have a developed brain until mid-20s. Like, so that whole argument is just totally pointless. And their neurons, the nervous system starts by, I believe, the skin nervous like cells, I believe it's week 5, but it starts young, and they're like, oh, well, it doesn't have the pathways. Even when they have the pathways, abortion is legal past that week, past that age. So I'm like, even when they can prove that they can feel every bit of that abortion, it is still completely legal to do it further than that. And you're fine with that. Like, I always ask them, would you be okay if we just ban abortions to 8 weeks? Because you guys always argue, well, most women get abortions before that anyway. Okay, you're right. They do. They get abortions around 8 weeks, 8 weeks or before. About, I think it's 64% get it before 8 weeks. If that's your argument, can we ban all abortions after 8 weeks? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, what? I'm using what you said to be like, you're right. Okay, let's ban it past 8 weeks. And you're still arguing with me. Like, it's not even the fact of, you know, you're trying to help the baby prevent pain from the child. No, you're trying to make it to where the mother just doesn't have to take responsibility. Because if you actually cared for the child, you would agree to ban abortions past 8 weeks, but you don't. And personally, I believe it should be banned just entirely. But if we're going to go based off what science can prove right now, and all the facts that they're telling me about, before 8 weeks, then you'd be fine with 8 weeks, but they're not. So they're being pretty hypocritical.
I would say so as well. And that's kind of what it boils down to, right? Someone making a personal choice to live properly, or what we would consider properly or right. Right, not fornicating and doing these type of things. Let's move a little bit further, and let's talk about some of your healing miracles. I know you mentioned miracles of healing. Can you expand on a little bit further on what happened to you in your life and how God has moved in miracle healing?
Yeah, absolutely. So about, let's see, 2017. So I was like early 20s. And I just thought, I came home from work one day pretty sick. I was like, oh, I think I just have the flu. I'll just take a few days off work. But I wasn't getting better. I was sleeping more. And I finally had my mother-in-law drive me to the clinic, because at that time I didn't have really good insurance. So it was just like this little clinic that I went to. And they said, you don't have the flu. And I'm like, well, what do you mean I don't have the flu? And they're all, well, we did a urine test and you're peeing blood. Like, it's just pure blood. There's nothing, you're not filtering anything. You're not absorbing water. So the last 3 days, you haven't even absorbed water. And I was just like, okay, so like now what? And they just said, well, let's start you on antibiotics. Let's see if that helps. So they did. I took some oral ones. I wasn't getting better. And I went back and they're, okay, let's do an ultrasound. I was like, okay, but I'm not pregnant. And they're like, yeah, no, not for that. So they went and did an ultrasound and found that my kidneys were hypervascular. I was in, I believe, stage 1 of kidney failure. And they're like, you're jumping pretty drastically, pretty quickly to complete kidney failure, like stage 4. And so I said, okay, well, what do we do about that? And they're like, well, unless we can get you like an immediate transplant, all we could do is, IVs, antibiotics, shots. There's really not much we can do, because they don't even know the cause of it. And I was like, okay. So I did all the medications. I tried everything. Nothing was working. And eventually they just said, well, we just have to wait it out. There's nothing else we can do other than a transplant possibly at this point, which doesn't seem very likely because it's so sudden. So we're just going to send you home. We're just going to see how you do. Basically, they were sending me home to die. And I was like, okay. So I went to several other hospitals, about 7 different ones, and all of them were completely lost. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't understand what happened. And they all said the same thing. There's nothing we could do without kidneys. So you just have to go home. And so I did. And I remember I was laying on the couch. My mom came over. I mean, my husband had to help me like crawl to the bathroom. I was so bad. And I was just crying. And I just told her, like, I just want to die. Like, if it's my time, I just want to go. This is so painful. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And she was crying. She's like, don't say that. And I was like, Mom, like, you don't get it. Like, I'm not even mad if I die. I'm not mad at God. I just don't want to do this. I don't want to suffer. And so she prayed over me, and we started this new drink that's supposed to help regulate blood sugar. And I was like, okay, I don't see how that's going to help me. And within a matter of like maybe a month of just prayer and drinking this drink that's not even FDA approved, it's like this weird little thing, my kidneys started functioning. They started healing. The doctors couldn't explain it. And I was like, well, is it the drink? Like, can you look at it? Can you tell me what this is? Because if it's the drink, I need to know. I need to know if this is God or if this is like some weird medication. And they said, honestly, they're like, I don't think it's the drink. There's nothing in here that's special. They said, but I wouldn't stop taking it. They're like, but I don't see how it could really help you. And so then I said, okay. And I just went about my life. And I eventually just went off the drink to see for myself. I said, okay, God, I'm going to stop. I want to see if this is you or if this is this. And I stopped and I was perfectly fine. I went back to the doctor for my regular test to see how I was doing. And they said I was completely healed. My kidneys were like, it was like it never happened.
Wow. And did the doctor say that must have been a miracle?
Oh, yeah. They didn't think I was going to make it. They're like, you were going to die. They're like, there was no way. And they were like, clearly it wasn't the drink because you're not even taking it anymore. I was like, no, I'm not.
Wow, that's awesome. Was there any other? I know there's some that you mentioned, other ones. Was there anything else major that you were at death's door, maybe?
Yeah. So another miraculous healing experience that I had. After all that, I had like, you know, sorry for the guys hearing this, but periods were completely irregular and they were just almost non-existent. And I was like, okay, well, I've always been a little irregular. It'll come back. It'll be normal again. And it never was. And I was like, okay, well, we want kids. So what is going on? I mean, we always talked about adoption, but we always wanted at least one of our own just to have that experience of pregnancy and everything. And I was like, I don't know. It's like I can't get pregnant. So I went to the doctor and they're like, well, there's nothing causing it. We can't figure out why you're not. And so I did at-home tests to see if I was ovulating the few times I did have a period. And I found out I wasn't ovulating at all. So not even eggs were coming. And I was like, okay, so there's almost no chance of getting pregnant. And I was telling my mom, I was like, you know what, it's fine. I've always wanted to adopt, so it's not even a big deal. And she goes, yeah, but God gave you that desire to have one of your own, and I want you to have that. So we prayed again. She prayed over me. She's a huge prayer warrior in my life, and she has that gift, that prayer gift that I just love, and I wish I could just get it as much as she has it, but I'm working on it. She has it, and she prayed over my womb. I had so many people pray over me and nothing worked. She prayed over me, and the next week I started ovulating. I was like, wait. I was like, that's not right. I was like, that's not right. So I took another test and it was still ovulating. I was getting higher because the way it works is when you test for ovulation, you want to be above a 0.5. And I was never above a 0.2 or a 1. I was at a 0.6 the first time. And then I went up to a 1.7. And then I went up to a 2. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, okay, it's just a fluke. Like this, there's no way. And so we tried. I didn't get pregnant, but then the next month I had my period on time to the T. And I was like, what? So I tested again and I'm ovulating again. And I was like, wait, I was like, no way. And it's been 4 months now that it's done that. And I've tried supplements. I've tried things to ovulate. Nothing's worked. I have not been on anything these last 4 months, and I've ovulated on time. My period's been on schedule to the point where I could be like, I know the day, I know the time of when I'm going to start. It's crazy.
And that's just the amazing power of God.
Mm-hmm.
Do these miracles make you want to serve God even more? Or does it make you want to tell somebody about Jesus, knowing that he can do awesome things like that?
Absolutely. Like it is just, I started my platform before I got all this, miraculous healing, and it's just crazy. I just keep getting healed left and right. Every time I turn around, oh, you have a cyst on your spine. And I'm like, what? And so my mom prays over me. I go back, it's gone. I was like, it's gone? Yeah, it's not there. Every time I turn around that I get diagnosed with something, prayer is the answer. And within the month, I'm healed. And I'm just like, how is this even? I have defied so many odds. I shouldn't even be standing. I don't even know how I'm here other than God. So when I talk to people and they're like, you're so, before I even share God, they're like, you're so happy all the time and full of life and you're so nice. And why? Why are you like that? And I'm just like, oh, I could tell you so many reasons why. And I just like word vomit all the reasons. And they're just like, oh my gosh. And a lot of them are atheists. My best friend's husband's even atheist. And he's like, you believe that was God? Like, you really believe, like, are you sure that that's why you're healed? And I'm like, I am 110% sure that is why I'm healed. And there's nothing I could show you every piece of paperwork from every doctor for the last 5 years that has told me otherwise, that I was not healed. I wasn't going to make it. And I could show you when I went back and everything was completely gone. And even he can't sit there and tell me that it's not healing because he's like, there's no scientific like explanation for it all.
Wow, wonderful. So, what advice do you have to maybe a young Christian that's in this day and age? They're bombarded by all kinds of things, media, friends at school, whatever the case is. What advice do you have for them in this day and age? They want to live like this. They want to serve God, but maybe they're bombarded by all kinds of different things, like in this world. What's your advice?
So my advice is a little different for everybody because I have had some young people come to me and they message me, and some of them are Muslim and they live with their family still, and they're like, I'll be disowned. I'll be disowned if I even tell them that I'm Christian. And I say, okay, well, don't tell them. You don't have to tell them. I'm like, there's going to be a point in time when God tells you to do that, when God tells you to come out and stand for him. My time came and I just finally stood up. For those of you who, are younger and have that luxury of being able to do it without the repercussions of being kicked out or things like that, I say that, you're going to experience it. Whether you're atheist or Christian, it doesn't matter because someone's always going to have something to say. When I was atheist and I lived for the world, I still had atheists tell me how I wasn't doing things right. And I'm like, I don't even believe in God. How are you sitting there telling me that I'm still wrong? There's
That doesn't even
always
make
going to be
sense to me.
somebody. Yeah, there's
What,
always
what,
going to be somebody.
what were some of the things that they would tell you? I never heard of an atheist telling an atheist that they're living atheism wrong.
So, as an atheist, I still believed in, I still was pro life. It wasn't because God told me to be pro life that I became pro life. I was pro life because of science. I was completely pro choice, and I was a pro choice atheist, and I was all for that. I've helped people with their abortions, even. And I went to the science of it all and I looked at it and the damage it did to the girls who got abortions that I saw. I said, this cannot be normal. I was like, these girls come out of it. A lot of them that I saw they were worse than when they were pregnant. And I was like, what the heck? I thought this was supposed to help. So I went to science and I was like, what is going on? This isn't right. And it just showed me that a lot more women are depressed and traumatized by the experience because they have this guilt of killing their baby. And so I was like, no. And then I went to science and I found out a baby is considered a baby by 8 weeks. I was like, what? And abortion allows for like 24. I was like, oh my gosh. So I became pro-life atheist. And people were like, you can't be pro-life and control people. And I'm like, why? First of all, I'm not controlling anyone, but why can't I be pro-life? And they would tell me, well, because that's what Christians believe, or, that's your beliefs on someone. And I was like, and you're not pushing your atheism on me trying to be pro-choice right now? I was like, you're not trying to force your beliefs onto me? I was like, just because I don't believe in God doesn't mean I have to be pro-choice. So they would tell me I was wrong because of my political beliefs, and it wasn't even religion anymore. I was like, I can never please you people. I don't believe in God and I'm still wrong politically.
Just real quick, you made a comment that said, that these women suffer all these kind of like guilt and whatnot. I've seen shows where, a young person gets an abortion and they go out shopping like everything's all good. A lot of I feel like a lot of not just media but Hollywood will take a subject like that and really diminish the effects of the person who's getting these things. Do you see that also? Because I know I do. It's like I saw a show where the person had an abortion and then they're like, dun, 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 dun. They got the bags, the shopping bags, and everything's all good, and there's no mental anguish or anything like that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And that's why some of the people I know who went and got abortions, they're like telling me, it's going to be better. And I'm not going to have this worry of an extra kid, or I'm not going to have this worry of a kid I can't take care of because I'm only, 16, 17 or this or that. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. Let's go. I'll be there for you, whatever. And they would come out and it's completely opposite of what Hollywood portrayed. And I'm like, and I look at them and they seem at first, like after the first, they come out of it, they're sad, but then they try to live life normal and they pretend that they're fine. And I was like, okay, they're fine. They're fine. They're good. It was just that moment of, guilt. Everybody's got to have that. And then they move on. But I came to find out someone very close to me tried to commit suicide because of it. And their mom called me and they're like, what is happening to my daughter? And they were freaking out. And I was like, what? And it was the middle of the night. And I went over and she had, sorry for the gore, excuse us, you want to exit out, but she had slit her wrist. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so we went and we were getting her help. And she lived with me and my husband because we couldn't leave her alone. So we would switch off between me and my husband and her parents. And I was so confused and I talked to her and I was like, what is wrong? What is happening? I thought you were fine. And she said, she's like, how did I do that? How did I kill my baby? She was like, I could have known if it was a girl or a boy if I just waited a week or two. She's all, I could have had my little girl or my little boy running around and she's calling me mommy. And she's like, and I don't have it. And she was so distraught. I had never seen someone like that in my life. And I just was like, but you've been going out partying and this and that. She's like, I've been trying to numb the pain and I can't do it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So it was pretty traumatizing for me to go from like, oh, it's totally fine and it's going to be great for them to what I saw with her, because I just couldn't understand. Hollywood doesn't tell you what happens in that room. And they don't tell you when you look at a baby that you're imagining the child you would have had, and how every time she saw a child at any age, she's all, my baby would have been 2 years older than that. My baby would have been 1 week younger than that. She always said that to me. And I was like, she is so broken. And she's still, I pray for her every day. She is still so broken right now. Like, she has separated herself from everyone that's loved her. And she doesn't talk to me anymore. I try and pray for her. But that was years ago that she got that done. She's a full grown adult and is just battling so much, so much depression, anxiety. I just couldn't believe the lies that Hollywood tells these young people.
For sure. And I see it as well. So what's a way that we can battle this? How can we reach people for Jesus? Basically what I'm trying to say. In this day and age, what's one of the ways, or what's some of the ways that we can reach people and get them these messages?
The best way I personally believe to reach people is where they're at, which a lot of them, don't acknowledge or even want to acknowledge God. Even if they believe he's real, they don't want to accept him because of hurts that they've had. So the best thing that I've encountered with myself and people that I've helped is to just show them that love regardless, that never ending love and understanding, but really to get to their level and explain it logically. I never knew what an apologetic was until I started doing this, because there's a difference between an evangelist and an apologetic. And I always thought, evangelists, you just go out and spread the word of God and that's it. They're all evangelists, but it's not. Apologetic is where you use logic and facts and science to help people who don't believe in God or religion, to get them to understand how all of that backs up the Bible and what we're talking about. Because a lot of people need to know how and why things happen the way that they do. And if they don't, they automatically turn to God is evil or he doesn't exist, because if he did, he wouldn't allow this to happen. So personally, the best thing I've experienced is never-ending love for those people, even though they hurt you. And I've gotten quite a bit of hurt, and I still talk to those people if they reach out, and understanding, because the hardest thing to do when someone's coming at you in a hateful way is to understand where they're at, because you just want to react. But when you sit back and really put yourself in that person's shoes. Why are they being this way? When you sit back and say, they're probably pro-choice because they had an abortion and they have this never-ending guilt and they don't want to believe that it was wrong. Why would you want to believe that it's wrong to kill your child? They want to believe that that child's not a child. They want to believe that that was never a baby, so they don't feel the never-ending guilt. And I get that. So to understand where they're at really puts it in perspective. Like, it's not that they don't want to believe science, it's that they just don't want to suffer the guilt of whatever it is they're struggling with. So you have to understand that and come to their level of, this isn't about God. It's a within battle that you're trying to reach for them. And so that understanding is huge. And when you come with logic of, you know what, I'm so sorry that you went through with that abortion, and I'm so sorry that science isn't here to back you up and say that that baby never felt pain and that it wasn't, that it is a baby and that you killed it. I'm so sorry that science isn't going to tell you otherwise. I wish that I could, because who wants that? But this will help you to understand that, one, even though you did that, your child is in heaven with God. You don't have to worry. You're going to see them again if you accept Jesus. You know, you're going to see that baby. But two, your experience and turning pro-life and all that you came with, that baggage that you look at as horrid and guilt and shame, that baggage becomes your testimony that you can now share with all the other people who don't understand or don't want to understand. So to be able to come with those three things, love, understanding, and logic, it really breaks it down to them that you're not against them. You are there for them. You don't want to see them suffer.
Awesome. Where can they see your videos? If they're not, maybe there's somebody in the audience that doesn't maybe gravitate towards social media. Where else, or where can they find you? Where can they message you if someone needs to talk about any of those matters? Where can they? Where are your link or your links?
So
new listeners.
Right now, I just created a second Instagram just for this because I did notice that some people don't do TikTok. So I created a second Instagram. It is the same username that I have on TikTok. I am starting my YouTube channel. I just uploaded 2 videos from TikTok on YouTube. I wish I have a link tree, but I don't know how to connect that other than through other social media platforms. But if no one uses social media at all, I do have a second phone number that I give out to people that they can contact me. I have a Facebook as well. If they do Facebook, most people usually have a Facebook over everything else. But if they have no social media, I do have a phone number that I do give out. It's a second line just for that.
All right. And on YouTube, what is the name of the channel? Is it the exact same as your TikTok? Or
it should be the exact same. I try to keep them all the same.
Right. So that's at Janelle Ellie.
Yeah.
Ellie. So if you're out there and you're wanting to look at the videos that we are talking about, they will be available on YouTube and as well as your second Instagram. What would the link be for that, or the at?
The Instagram is the same username as well.
Right, at Janelle Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
And I will put a how to spell that in the comment bar, in the link in below. And other than that, do you have anything else to say for our audience? We're wrapping it up here. I for one appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me and have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one thing I have to say is that no matter what you're going through, guys, whatever you've experienced, whether it's hurt from the church or maybe you've never been introduced to God, you are the only person standing in your way from having that relationship with him and nobody else. And you don't need anybody's permission or to even attend a church to start doing your own study, to start learning for yourself from the Bible, which you have access to now through apps, social media, even the hardcover ones in any bookstore, even Barnes and Noble. You have complete access and power to go and study it for yourself. Whether you're trying to disprove or prove, it doesn't matter. You're the only one who can do it. Nobody else, no matter how much someone tries to force their beliefs on you. I just say that if you're going to get into it, to be open-minded. If you're going to try and disprove it, try to prove it as much as you try to disprove it, because I promise you'll see what we're talking about for yourself.
Awesome. Janelle, thank you once again for your time. Very awesome testimonies. Praise God for you and your family, or your future family. I'm prophesying now that for your future family, and thank you very much.